These are the only two images of Roxanne Fernando the public has been privy to. Her warm smile and bright eyes reflect a girl whose friends described as happy and joyful. But it all disappeared on the night of February 15th, 2007, when she went out with her boyfriend on a Valentine's date. With a stuffed animal and a heart-shaped box of chocolates in hand, the 24-year-old was taken to a park, brutally beaten, and left to die in a snowy Winnipeg ditch. Her boyfriend and two other accomplices pled guilty to the crime. The reason for the brutal slaying? The Crown alleges it was because Roxanne was pregnant and refused to have an abortion.
Well, I guess tragically, like most people, I heard about Roxanne after she was already dead. That's how we first came to know her, under these horrible circumstances. Go out and
Mike McIntyre, crime reporter for the Winnipeg Free Press. He covered Roxanne's murder trial from day one.
We didn't know much about her at first, but as the case would proceed through the courts, we'd learn quite a bit about this young woman, just how special she was to her family, to her friends. Her nickname was Apple because she was such a bright and cheerful individual. That's what her friends called her. By all accounts, people who knew her absolutely adored her, and people just could not understand how someone could snuff out a life. Someone as popular and with such a bright future as Roxanne had.
As McIntyre sat in the courtroom day after day, listening to testimony in the case, one thing was made clear.
The Crown said that, it's clear that Nathaniel Plurd had put a lot of pressure on Roxanne to get an abortion once he learned she was pregnant. And it appears that at one point in time she was actually willing to consider that, then changed her mind, decided she wanted to go through with the pregnancy. That didn't sit well at all with Nathaniel Plurd. He was worried about how his family would react, what this might do to his future. Somewhat ironic that he threw away his entire future because of this. He will spend pretty much all of his formative years, his adult years, behind bars. 3 people ended up being sentenced for this. Her boyfriend was the orchestrator of the attack, a man named Nathaniel Plurd. He was convicted of first-degree murder, which is the most serious charge in the criminal code. He got the mandatory sentence, life, no parole for 25. His friend, a man named Jose Taruno, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He got life, no parole for 15. There was also a youth involved who we can't name. He also pleaded to first-degree murder, but as a youth, and he got a much lighter penalty, in fact, just 6 years in prison because he was a youth. But together, these 3 conspired and executed what can only be described as a cold-blooded murder plot.
While the citizens of Winnipeg were confronted with the horrid details of the murder and struggled with the fact 3 young men from their community could commit such a crime, one in particular was paying even closer attention to the case. Local member of parliament and chair of the multi-party parliamentary pro-life caucus, Bruinooge.
After hearing about Roxanne Fernando's case and how she had protected the rights of her unborn child, MP Bruinooge decided something needed to be done to protect the rights of the pregnant woman. So he introduced a private member's bill named after Roxanne.
I feel that this is a good way to acknowledge her through a private member's bill, but at the same time have the opportunity to empower women like Roxanne to be able to press charges should they ever be threatened or coerced into making a choice against their will.
During the trial, it was revealed Fernando's boyfriend told her to have an abortion when they found out she was pregnant. And even though at first she agreed, she later changed her mind and decided to keep the child. Bruinooge's Bill C-510 would protect women in similar situations. The legislation seeks to amend the criminal code to ensure everyone who coerces a female person to procure or attempt to procure an abortion for herself would be found guilty of coercion or attempted coercion, dependent on the case.
Well, it's, of course, a challenging topic when you deal with matters of the unborn. And so it's something that I think, will continue to be a challenging debate. I think that this particular issue, the issue of coercion and threats towards pregnant women, has a lot of strength in the sense that I think most people would agree that forcing a young woman to do something like have an abortion against her will is not acceptable.
Faye Sonier, legal counsel of the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, a national association of evangelical Christians, supports Bruinooge's efforts to pass Bill C-510. We spoke to Sonier via Skype.
We were thankful. We think it's a great bill, and upon reading it, we realized a few things. It was a pro-woman bill. It seeks to protect both women and the children they choose to carry. It's clear in language and in purpose, and we think it's something that every Canadian can support, whether they're pro-choice or pro-life.
But that hasn't stopped some from criticizing this proposed legislation. They claim there is already enough protection under the law for pregnant women. And if passed, this would be a huge step toward banning abortions in this country, where there is presently no abortion law. Sonier says that's not the intention.
There are already protections in place in Canada to protect those who choose to have an abortion. This is one piece of legislation that would protect those women who don't want to have an abortion, who want to carry their child to term. For example, we have the fact that there is no legislation whatsoever in Canada regulating abortion. We have the bubble zone legislation around abortion clinics. And then we have the fact that abortion clinics are independent private clinics that are funded by the government. So this is just one simple bill that would protect the choice of mothers who want to carry their children to term in safety.
The major issue both Bruinooge and Sonier say is that of coercion. Both say presently no law protects a woman who might be coerced into aborting her child by force, though other forms of intimidation are covered by the criminal code.
One of the common arguments against it we hear is that, well, there's already a section dealing with intimidation in the criminal code, so what's the point? But the reality is this type of legislation isn't novel. So, for example, we can look at the crime of assault. In the criminal code, it's broad. It includes all forms of assault. So one could easily ask, for example, why do we have a section dealing with assault with a weapon, or sexual assault, or aggravated assault? And it's because the legislator and Canadians want to single out some crimes as being specifically worthy of condemnation. So for this case, we want to make it clear and communicate to Canada and the world that it's wrong to try to coerce a woman into aborting a child she wants to keep.
I think that this bill should receive a good deal of support. However, I know that it'll be a tough road to pursue, and I'm open to doing that hard work.
Work to be the voice for many young women who are coerced into having an abortion each year. Bill C-510 is currently awaiting its second reading in the House of Commons and will be debated later this fall. For more information on Roxanne's law, visit our website at crossroads.ca. In Winnipeg, Manitoba, Magdalene John, 100 Huntley Street.